Homebound arc.
I do not understand the reasoning. The green-eyed creature turned off the phone again, chains remaining calm and stagnant. Your orders are unfounded, God, but this protocol is not necessary. I, as a weapon of mass destruction, will complete your requests regardless of intent. I will attempt to separate John Matthews and the virus, Circe Parsons. Mari's deep eyes scanned her slowly, worry growing.
I see 47, Martinez shouted in panic. We have to get out of here. 12 wasn't bluffing.
Circe just giggled, kicking her heel upwards, tearing the knife from the floor and catching it mid-rotation. She reholstered her handgun and smirked at me. Everything makes sense? She cocked her head, pink eyes dancing. I scratched my head, wincing before nodding uncertainly. Yeah, I think so. I know you do. She swayed, pressing forwards. You're smarter than you give yourself credit for, John. You've already figured out my test, haven't you?
What? I staggered. Test?
When I explained the plan just now, I left one minuscule plot hole there on purpose. Circe put her hand on her hips, eyes warm and expectant. You weren't going to tell me about it and just try to fix it on the spot, weren't you? I stared at her in disbelief. Jesus, I shook my head. Is everything with you a test? I don't even know if this is what you're talking about, but I mean, when you said that... I know, she squirmed, cutting me off as her hand brushed mine. How nice it is to talk to someone when you're looking at the same page. I flinched my hand backwards, figuring she had done it on accident, but her fingers followed mine. You have everything this needs to work. She parted her lips. You understand others better than you understand yourself. I find that very interesting, an exceedingly rare trait, to not clone others, but to know what makes them tick. You and I are very similar, don't you think, John? My face just burned red hot with confusion, stomach squirming. Circe's face was inches from mine, coy avidity squirming behind her eyes. Plus your glorified bait, she shrugged, breaking the tension. I like you for that too. I nervously returned the laughter, itching at the cut in my arm. That's me. Thanks, Circe. For the interesting part, not the bait part. Director, we have to go, Smith shouted up the stairs. She's nearly here. Circe just stepped yet closer, hand flat out grabbing mine as she put her other arm on my shoulder and smiled through cunning eyes. And of course I'm saying and doing all of this now to manipulate you into following me despite your own self-interest, she cooed, taking several seconds before again tapping at the scar on my arm. But is there perhaps an inconsistency in that logic? Maybe a crucial detail left out? Her wicked smile split open slightly, her arm tightening before she smirked and stepped back. You're looking at the same page? She waved and began walking out of the room, gesturing me to follow her. Am I truly so manipulative to make a mistake in that regard? I just tried to steady my hammering heart for several seconds. Jesus, I sighed to myself, shaking my thoughts clear and running after her. What the hell was her deal?
Go, go, go!
Martinez cried, ushering us towards the car, panicked eyes flicking back to a tiny form staggering up the hill. 47's just confused, I sighed, shaking my head. With her failsafe so suddenly offline, her parasite will be trying to heal her brain with missing information. She's trying to kill us, sure, but she's like a drunk kid right now. Martinez stopped, eyes flashing to Circe as if expecting her to snap at me. Martinez, she just nodded. What do you think will happen if we run now and leave her wandering around? He gawked.
Not only will she kill anything else that moves. I shook my head, but she'll be healing ever so slowly. Do you really want to be the one to set that thing loose in this town? He was in stunned silence. Then what? Smith responded for him. Director, there is no other option. 47's redirection is activated, and there are only 4 of us. We couldn't even hold her up. She's 4th class. What the hell is your plan? Circe just softly glanced at the creature. The girl's mangled brown hair fluttered like dead skin, her back arched as 6 metal coils dragged behind her, vaporizing the ground on contact. Circe mused, facing away from Smith. Mind if I see your gun? She held out her hand behind her. Smith stared for a short time before hesitantly placing his handgun in her grasp. Now what? He shook his head. Director, I don't see... We hold our ground, Circe shrugged, glancing to me and nodding. I don't see any other way. Maybe she'll get bored before she reaches us or something. What? Smith shrieked, backing up beside Martinez. You're kidding! Hold your ground, you fuck, Circe sighed, raising his gun and shooting a grouping of 3 shots into Martinez's head. The man's neck snapped backwards with a spray of gore, and he impacted the ground with a dead thud. Circe's aim now rested on Smith, her calm demeanor not wavering in the slightest. Did I say you could flee? She sighed, as I scrambled to kick Martinez's gun out of reach. What? Smith panicked, tensing in terror as Circe shoved the weapon to his forehead. We're just gonna hold our ground. Cool? She cocked her head. Is that really so much to ask? I am the director, after all. The creature was at the dirt driveway now, horrible eyes fixed on us, spindly legs barely supporting her. How does a human kill a left hand? Circe cocked her eyebrows at Smith, smile eating at her face. I wonder. You've lost it! Smith just cried in terror. You're going to get us all killed! Surely there are several ways. Circe just continued thoughtfully, not even watching the approaching creature. They're not immortal, after all, just really difficult to kill. But some ways must be easier than others. What do you think, Smith? I think you're insane, he squirmed. You just shot Martinez! Don't you think there are irregularities in their design? Circe grinned widely, irises shaking with excitement. Perhaps there are plot holes in their construction, inconsistency with the rules they're supposed to abide by. Can you think of such a flaw, Smith? Smith just struggled. Did you know that when a left hand tears someone apart, it pulls pieces towards itself? Circe tilted her head questioningly. I mean, of course they would, right? They want to flay you in every direction, away from themselves to either side, the whole shebang. Of course, we're only interested in things that could potentially be used against them. Pretty dangerous to throw something towards yourself, wouldn't you agree? She stooped down, the handgun not leaving Smith as she collected a handful of dirt. By nature, left hands know it's usually easiest to completely annihilate someone by grabbing what they imagine to be their skeleton and pulling the sternum towards themselves, the spinal area away from themselves, and so on. Really spread it out, you know? She tossed the dirt into the air, watching carefully as it drifted towards the creature now bearing down on us. The dust carried for a time before picking up an unnatural rhythm some ways away from the creature. Circe grinned. 47's range is pretty impressive for a 4th class. Before Smith could speak, Circe cut him off, pulling out her jet black hunting knife. Now, this is coated with something left hands can't consciously distort, she nodded. I'm sure you know that, Smith, although to us humans it appears as nothing more than black paint. Distortion resistant, but not actually immune, I chimed in. If you were to try to make a bullet out of it, it could still be subconsciously redirected, so long as the subject doesn't consciously try to manipulate it. Right, Circe cheered. So, depending on how hard I were to throw this blade at our hateful friend over there, with my stellar accuracy, it still may or may not come back at me. Too risky for my taste. What do you say, Smith? Based on the dirt test, the creature was seconds from being in range, coils raising into the air less than 20 feet from us. I know what you're thinking, Circe smirked to Smith. Or, well, maybe not, because you're a little slow, but an intelligent person would be making a connection to the skeleton dismembering I mentioned earlier. Circe adjusted her grip on the knife, grin rupturing into a hysterical smile as she began wrapping it loosely in some cloth. Left hands can't consciously see the skeleton and therefore must grab at bits of matter they assume to fit the bill. One might also recall how I mentioned it pulls pieces towards itself. It can't pull the knife towards itself consciously due to its makeup, but... She let out a sickly giggle. But what if it thought it was something else? Her heel kicked Smith forwards as she drove the knife into his chest. He staggered forwards in agony, nearly toppling to the ground before 47's eyes lifted, saliva-filled maw thrashing open in laughter. Smith was instantly torn in every direction, blood exploding into the air. From the shredding carnage, Smith's sternum came to a steady halt as it dropped in its arc, but one item refused to slow as soon as it came into view and caught sight of 47's gaze. The uncovered blade spiraled forwards with the initial velocity of the explosion, and 47's conscious distortions did nothing at all to slow it. Crack. The creature's advance was cut short as a blade impacted her left eye, forcing her backwards with a shrill cry of pain. Circe was on her instantly, tearing forwards before the creature even steadied itself. Dress heels clacked as Circe slashed the embedded knife across cartilage and into the other creature's eye, tearing out both optic nerves with a gruesome squelch. Fuck, 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 fuck! I cried in terror, scrambling forwards with the magazine to Circe's handgun. I flailed like a horrified rubber chicken, stabbing the magazine at the clouds of blood attempting to reconstruct 47. Yeah, here! I panicked, flailing the magazine to Circe, who caught it one-handed as she slashed the blinded girl's legs out from under her. 47 collapsed with an aimless flurry of coils, but before she could land a hit, Circe calmly loaded the handgun with the bloodied bullets and aimed the barrel at the girl's head. The creature's head splattered the ground, unable to deflect her own bodily fluids. Circe took a moment to grin before lowering the sights and firing the rest of the bullets up and down the girl's spine, grouping them at the base. She went until the gun clicked, and then kept going, her eyes wide with elation as she giggled uncontrollably. The blood ceased to swirl, distortions fading as 47 went cold and gray, fingers clutched at nothingness. Circe remained this way for nearly a minute, hunched and hysterical as one hand gripped at the knife, the other firing imaginary bullets. What God created you? She giggled madly at the corpse, words barely coherent. Because I am God now. Yo, okay. I shook my head, hesitantly putting my hand out to her. Circe, maybe take a second to... I did it! She turned her head at a horrific angle, face speckled with blood as she continued to click the trigger. She expelled sickly bubbles of laughter from her throat, my stomach squirming as her irises seemed to flash with glitched static. As I went to put out my hand again, she just fell forwards onto me, hands gripping at my collar. We cannot be stopped! She giggled, static deepening the blood-red hue of her irises. Humanity will not be silenced. We are already the parasites of this existence, the filthy disease that will overtake our creators. Her lips pressed against mine and my eyes widened, hands splaying out. I could feel her wicked smile spreading through her lips, body pressing against me as her gun clattered to the ground. Facility Arc. Your task, the scientist finally spoke, is to play a game of chess in which neither of you wins. Player A is first. John's screen flashed over and over in red text, the timer steadily falling in the corner. His hand shakily dragged the cursor to one of his pawns.
New development!
Dahmer's voice suddenly shrieked out from the intercom.
Heyo, John! Great work out there today!
John flinched, eyes narrowing.
You did, however, mention that we were playing a game.
She continued, laughing.
And you promised me 2 test subjects in return, didn't you, John?
That's correct, Dahmer, John hissed. And here we are.
But you're trying to cheat me already, aren't you, John?
Dahmer's voice continued crackling.
I created you, John. I know you. And your acting is not that great.
John's expression remained unyielding, fingers tapping against the mouse.
You think I wouldn't know what you did?
Dahmer continued, laughing.
John, I always pegged you for a smart one, but this is just dastardly. Stand up, 52.
Dahmer continued.
Look John in the eye. It's okay. He was never infected.
52 gawked as John's fist balled.
And just when were you gonna let us all know about your little plan, hey John?
Dahmer giggled.
You better explain it now before 52 paints the walls. I have no use for her anyway, seeing as how you nulled my experiment.
John just sat silently.
Typhoid fever, right John?
Dahmer smirked.
You found out how I was keeping a left-hand parasite alive inside of you. Want to tell us about that?
John remained silent.
105.
Dahmer sighed.
Kill 52.
Salmonella. John quickly shot up. Wait! Calm the hell down, Dahmer. Yes, I knew you selectively bred cultures to create a strain that targets my immune system. You essentially infected me with the bacterial equivalent to the HIV virus.
Cancel order.
Dahmer spoke to 105 before switching to again address John.
And just why would I do that, John?
Males, John stammered. I don't know why exactly, but for some reason, well, the female immune system remains unaware of an introduced left-hand parasite. Males cannot accept the addition. Their immune system treats it like a rejected organ transplant, attacking the foreign cells in an attempt to destroy it. If my left-hand parasite is attached to my brainstem and controlling my nervous system, that essentially means that my body is constantly trying to kill itself. Destroying my immune system is the only way to keep me alive.
And just where did you learn all of this?
Dahmer cooed.
Perhaps you weren't as passed out as we thought during your testing.
It doesn't matter, John continued. I quickly learned that the balance of deadly salmonella and equally deadly white blood cells in my body makes me a ticking time bomb. After using my first real distortion to destroy a camera, I weakened my parasite enough to the point where one or both of them began to get the best of me before I could heal, leading me to kinda melt.
That was a mess,
Dahmer agreed.
Had to get 106 to transfer you to the 7th ward immediately.
But it also means that in this specific experiment, John continued, the hantavirus you introduced was completely wiped out along with prions before they could incubate in any of my already infected cells. Before you began the test, I burned through useless distortions, weakening my parasite and allowing the typhoid fever to knock the incubation temperature of the hantavirus out of whack. 52 remained confused as she glanced between John and the intercom.
And surely,
Dahmer cackled,
you knew this was cheating my experiment, which called for both the prions and hantavirus to be introduced successfully.
Not cheating, John retaliated. I said I would do your experiment willingly. I didn't say the outcome would be what you expected. You should have accounted for outside infections. This is your loss, Dahmer.
You have a warped definition of what is and isn't cheating.
Dahmer giggled.
That's why you're so much fun, and why I'll allow your behavior to slide.
The speaker crackled.
Not only that,
she continued, growing excited.
But I'll even give you a chance right now to get both you and 52 out of this penalty experiment alive, like you seem to have planned. The test will resume as before. A draw, your goal to ensure that both of you survive. And now, you must simply not talk to one another, much like it was before, no?
John looked up at the cameras, eyes narrowing.
With one fun addition.
Dahmer continued.
As usual, if you put 52 in checkmate, you both die. If you don't complete the game in time, you both die. However, now, if 52 puts you in checkmate, she will be allowed to live while only you die.
John's eyes remained firm, 52's skin draining of color.
How much do you really trust her, John?
Dahmer cackled.
Just because you're so kind to try and save others doesn't mean the rest of the world shares your naive foolishness. I like fun psychological stuff. When you agree, it makes things more interesting.
John and 52's gazes met.
I never stop the timer.
Dahmer continued, smiling wide as the red numbers continued to count down.
Looks like you've got less than 5 minutes to make your moves. Remember, no talking or other forms of communication. Ended in a draw, you both live. You in checkmate, 52 lives. Anything else, you both die. Let's see you cheat your way out of this one, John.